Hey everybody, welcome back to Soundcheck. This is Brent, just a solo episode, doing something a little different. I'm going to talk about Firefly Music Festival from this year, 2022. For some context, I've gone to this festival each year with my family. It's become kind of like a family tradition. This was our 9th straight year going. The festival itself has been around for 10 years. This was the big 10-year anniversary for it. We only missed the very first year. As you're familiar with the other material that we cover on the channel, this is definitely not something within my wheelhouse. This isn't the music I normally listen to, but it's just a fun get together with family. I enjoy it. I have a good time. I'm not going to give a rating for this because there's too many artists. I'm not familiar enough with most of their material, with the exception of two, which I'll get into. And also, this was essentially a vacation for me. So I was pretty drunk for a good bit of the sets. I took, hardly any notes. So really, a lot of this is just kind of general impressions. And it's just kind of for fun. So I'll be pretty brief for it. With that said, I think that's all the context. So let's dive right in. So the first artist I saw is one of the three I was really looking forward to. So basically this year, I wanted to see the headliners for each of the 4 nights. And then I was really into the 3 hyperpop groups. So the first one being 100 gecs. And unfortunately, I was a little bit disappointed with their set. This is probably going to sound so stupid and naive, but I come from mostly going to punk and metal shows. And it was pretty wild for me seeing so many pop artists and how none of them actually play instruments. That was a bit of a bummer. So with 100 gecs, Dylan barely did anything. And I know he's a bit more in the back end of things, kind of assembling the songs themselves, but he was kind of low energy. Laura killed it. She was the centerpiece. Super fun, super animated, really into it. But really the main aspect that bummed me out about their set is that they cut the edges off of their material. I love them because their music is taking all these disparate genres and subgenres and just putting them in a blender, just mishmashing these amazing concoctions. I was really bummed that they kind of neutered their set. And I don't know if the rationale was to try to appeal more so to the general audience that's there. It was a more upbeat, just kind of dance electric kind of set. I mean, 800 decibel cloud, Money Machine. I mean, these songs end with either like screaming or these like overloaded bass drops. They basically just nixed the experimental parts of their songs. And that's the main facet of why I love them. So that was really disappointing. But that said, I will totally go and see them again if they're ever headlining somewhere. I'd love to see some longer sets and them just fully dive into their material. The headliner of the first night was Halsey. I'm going to sound like a broken record and repeat this for so many artists. I'm not super familiar with her material. I know the hits. Her set was very front-loaded with hits. I have a close friend who wanted to see her and wasn't able to, so I'm going to have a huge video dump in this episode of a bunch of songs. But she was good. High energy, good crowd work, lots of hits, pyrotechnics. As each headliner, the set ended with cool fireworks. And even though I wasn't familiar with the material, the performance was still very grand. It somehow felt larger even than just a single performer on a stage. So kudos to pulling that off. Next, I saw All Time Low, who I should be pretty familiar with, given they're from Baltimore. I've definitely heard their name a lot. I'm certain I probably have to have seen them at some point at a Warped Tour. It's not my thing, but that said, I can't knock them for that. I mean, they're great at what they do. They have great pop anthems, really personable, get along with their fans, clearly have a good rapport relationship with them, interacting with them. It was a fun time. Great summer, bouncy, light band. Avril Lavigne performed at Firefly, and I was not into it. She was very low energy. She was partially to mostly lip syncing. And unlike some of the other pop performers, didn't really have any sort of dancing or choreography to kind of compensate for that. Like, I mean, as I'll get into later, like I can understand lip syncing when you're dancing, you're doing a performance, and then you kind of chime in for certain necessary parts of the song. But it's pretty lame to lip sync and just have low energy and just kind of have your mouth closed and the song's clearly playing, especially during the chorus. Could you please sing the chorus? Holy crap. There was one part where her fiance came on stage to sing a song with her. I thought it was pretty cringe. Weezer performed. My single word note for them was fine. They were fine. I can't be unbiased or objective with them. I don't know what it is. I can't quantify it. I can't describe it, but there's something about them that gets under my skin. They very much annoy me. That said, they sounded good. Their hits were good. Beverly Hills, My Name is Jonas. They sounded good. They did what they needed to do. For some reason, I just can't stand them. Maybe it's because they try to act cool even though they're absolute dweebs. I don't know. My Chemical Romance was the second night's headliner, and at that point, they were my favorite performance. Super dramatic. I mean, my middle school, high school self loved to hear Welcome to the Black Parade material. That's my favorite album. Essentially all I really am knowledgeable of with their material. I've never ventured into any other albums, really. Given my predisposition for loving heavier music, obviously listening to mostly metal, I was really excited whenever I hear an artist of another genre incorporate some heavier aspects, and I was not expecting them to, and I really appreciated that. Gerard Way actually screamed and growled in a couple instances. He also had some sort of voice box, which heavily distorted his voice and made kind of unpleasant, noisy sounds, which I wouldn't expect from a popular group, not pop music. And also, I don't know what it's called, but he also had some sort of like modulation tool. I guess you would almost see like noise musicians using, and was just bringing all in, not harsh noise, but certainly not what I was expecting for music playing for a general audience. And he used it to kind of remix certain elements of the song, which is always fun, always nice to kind of have a live performance kind of turn a song on its head, especially something that you're super familiar with.
When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see our marching band. He said,
I was not familiar with this band. There was a band called Wolf Alice, a rock band from London, England. They had a female vocalist and were actually kind of heavy. So that's cool. Low Moon. My note is music that could play on a car commercial. They were very indie, and I categorize indie by having group vocals, a violin, acoustic guitars, and a piano. Very light and easy music. The headliner for the third night. I was convinced that My Chemical Romance was going to be my favorite from the festival until Green Day performed. I've never considered myself a diehard Green Day fan. I've liked their hits. I've liked them enough. I'd say Holiday is my favorite song, thanks to some Tony Hawk game at some point. I think American Wasteland. Yeah. They are true showmen. High energy, so much fun. They have tons of hits. Myself and the crowd around me couldn't stop moving through the entirety of their set. Great crowd work, interacting with the crowd. There was some point they brought up a person to play guitar for a song and then just gave him the guitar because it was his birthday. Brain Stew is awesome live. That song is heavy. And now we're at the performance that was my favorite. I would say probably the artist I was the most looking forward to this year, which was Dorian Electra. Again, I was so excited for all the hyperpop groups here this year. Dorian killed it. Unlike 100 gecs, they did not sacrifice any of the experimental or heavier aspects of their songs. They didn't pull any punches. They had a fairly short set at 45 minutes, and so the first half of it was kind of snippets of songs. It would be like up to the first chorus or the first half of the song, and then they would find a way to sort of blend it and kind of carefully roll it right into the next song. So it flowed pretty nicely and got to go through a fair amount of their discography, which was pretty nice as a fan. There were some remixes to songs. I don't remember exactly what the song was, but there was one point where it became like a gabber mix. I mean, the BPM just shot off. It just skyrocketed. There was an outfit change. There were 2 backup dancers. I very much enjoyed it. The songs have a great variety of samples, instrumentals, beats. I will absolutely try to see Dorian headline at some point when the fans are just dedicated to see them and can have a longer set and get into some more deep cuts. I'd like to hear Under the Armor live. That one's a banger. And then on the final day, there was a lightning storm, which delayed things for a bit. But then we got to return, and I stumbled upon T-Pain, and I was not into him. There was a lot of bass. That's nice. I like that. I like a lot of bass live. But that was kind of it. There was a hype man who was doing a lot of heavy lifting. And so I just kind of wandered away. Went and bought some fried Oreos, got, upset my stomach because of that. And Manchester Orchestra happened to be playing at the stage nearby. And so I squatted down and gave them a listen. And they're a rock band from Atlanta, Georgia. I've definitely heard their name before, but never once checked them out. I feel like I always get them confused with like Trans-Siberia Orchestra, the one with like the really kind of like epic Christmas song or something. Like I was expecting to hear that and it wasn't that at all. And I was like, okay, I don't know who this group is then. Yeah, at least they were rock, somewhat heavy, kind of maybe not sad, but like somber vocal delivery. At that moment, I was kind of in the mood to hear some post rock, and they were the closest I could get. So they sort of scratched that itch. I don't really like rock. It's kind of lame to me. It's like, why half-ass being heavy? Like, just be heavy. I don't know. And then for the final two that I saw, it was actually a pretty good 1-2 punch. Usually the artists don't have any sort of flow or cohesiveness with their performances on the stages that they're at. I assume it probably has to do with like scheduling and when artists gotta, get out of there or whatever. These two artists actually worked well together. First one up being the third and final hyperpop artist I was excited for, which was Charli XCX. She was great, super high energy, backup dancers, never stopped moving, good choreography. Not the most familiar with the material. There were 2 songs she played I actually didn't even realize were hers, so that was kind of wild. I mostly got into her because of her This Is How I'm Feeling Now album, which she released during the COVID lockdown, because it's got some bangers on it. It's kind of heavy. I really would have liked to have heard Pink Diamonds or Anthems. I think she played Claws. I think that's the only thing she played from that album. And I guess she made that album really just to scratch the creative itch during the lockdown and not really with the intent of playing that live, which was a bummer to me because that's pretty much the only material I wanted to hear. But regardless, great set. She, definitely appeased the fans. And then following her was Dua Lipa as the final headliner. At this point in the festival, I was just dead man walking, exhausted. I stayed for 5 songs of her set, and then I just went back to the RV and went to sleep. Virtually the same thing with her, pop artist, lots of dancing, tons of backup dancers. She was the final headliner. Yeah, she sounded great. I was familiar with some of her hits. So yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, like I said, not rating this. I barely have fully formed. I barely have half formed thoughts with most of these artists. I'm just not. I have to be familiar with their work to even say anything about them. And I really only have passing glances with most of these groups. It's just not my thing. I like groups that play instruments. I like stuff that's loud and heavy and fast. I almost did a review of last year's, and I was kind of looking forward to that because I saw Denzel Curry, and that was great. And then it might have been the year before I saw JPEG Mafia for the first time, and it was one of my favorite performances I've ever seen there. It was like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. He just had this small group of people. He was so thankful he was there and got in the crowd and was just screaming the entire time. It was so awesome. And really the thing I was looking forward to with reviewing last year's was I was going to shit hard on Machine Gun Kelly. His set was abysmal. And I might still have the notes somewhere to go into that. So if you kind of liked this and would like more, maybe leave a comment or a message and I can do a retrospective on one or more of the previous years. Thanks for tuning in to this little, aside, this little fun little extra, if you will. So, yeah, this is just Brent signing off. Sound check. Thanks for listening. Peace.